Howdy, welcome back. I'm Steven, and this is FWP Reviews. This year has been a long year, and I have seen a lot of movies, too many movies even. As we are on the eve of the end of the year, November comes along and is one of the best months that we've had all year for movies. A tumultuous year for movies filled with highs and lows, lots of really good movies and lots of really bad movies. A month that is just so consistently great is an oddity, but a very welcome one at that. November was great. Let's start with the first movie I saw this month. Little Fish is a meditation on grief, helped by the timing of its release. This movie centers around a memory loss virus sweeping through the world, and we're focused on one couple trying to make their way through this new landscape of the world. The movie is of course helped by some reflections of what we're experiencing in real life, even though the movie was filmed and edited before what we're experiencing now. But it is fascinating to see how the themes of loss and grief help this movie stand on its own, and it doesn't need the timing of its release to be the great movie that it is. Little Fish is a quiet movie with a strong voice that makes something of itself. 9 Days is one of the best movies released this year. I have been waiting for this movie to be available for me to watch, and finally it popped up on demand, and I immediately dropped everything to watch it. It's a very stylistic movie, and it's unique and experimental in that way. The movie lets the viewer meditate on the movie and take away what they can and what they find out about the movie as they go along. There's a certain value around almost every corner and an infinite number of ways for each individual viewer. It never really hands anything to you specifically, but when the movie finally begins to click, it is just so rewarding. This movie is also bolstered with an all-star cast led by the ever-talented Winston Duke. Eternals is far and above the worst reviewed Marvel movie in recent history, but I enjoyed it, and a lot of other people seem to enjoy it too. The large cast and the fresh approach to this genre really drew me in. There's a lot of tweaking to be done to this type of formula, but I believe it's got a great future in this genre, and it's great to see the birth of that in this genre. Antlers was one of the few misses for me this month. The themes and the story of this movie could have been delivered a lot better. It just felt muddled as a whole, as well as being extremely slow and drawn out. However, the intense and gory horror that is on display is really well crafted, and you can see the attention to detail on all of the creatures, how that exactly plays out, and it creates a lot of tension, and it's really horrifying to watch at times. What it lacks in effectiveness and overall quality, it does manage to make that up somewhat with some really effective horror. Spencer showcases a fable about Diane Spencer during one of the Christmases at the royal family's estate. This is one of the most profound and most atmospheric movies released this year, and the atmosphere of this movie is so intense and original, and it's been a very long time since something has taken me this much aback in terms of atmosphere of a movie. There was so much beauty in the movie as well as beauty in the tension of the movie, and there was a lot more tension and play back and forth than I thought there would be. This movie is great on its own, but Kristen Stewart gives one of the best performances I have seen in years. She packs an incredible punch and is so in tune with this performance. Clifford the Big Red Dog was another bomb this month. In fact, it was the worst movie of the month. But to say that this is the worst movie shows just how good this month has been. Clifford is definitely not good, but it's not a total bomb like I thought it would be. It still sits closer to average than it does to the worst possible movie. There's a lot of little things that I found myself loving about this movie. Funnily enough, the fight choreography was pretty decent at times, and it was really fun to watch a lot of the antics of this movie unfold. However, it still was just not good and not necessary. But it does manage to make it worthwhile for its target audience, and at the end of the day, that's what kids' movies are for. Bergman Island was the first movie I got to see at the lovely Fairhope Film Festival this year. It features a couple, both of which who are writers, traveling to the island where Ingrid Bergman did most of his most famous works. It studies love and complexities in a way that bounces so well off of what Bergman has done with his many movies, as well as trying to bring it more into the modern era and create something fresh and exciting. It uses a movie within a movie structure, which is sometimes a risk, but in this case it works really well because the movie that is within a movie is astounding. I found some parts of the actual movie to be a little slow, but the performances and the emotion helped carry through that and helped build this sort of magical experience as a whole. The Humans is another movie I got to see at the Fairhope Film Festival this year, and it was definitely my favorite from the festival. It features a family spanning 3 generations meeting at the youngest daughter's new apartment in New York to have Thanksgiving dinner. As the sun sets, emotions are laid to bear and strange noises begin to emerge from the night. This movie is a stage-to-screen adaptation, and it's one that just works so well. There's so many intricacies involved in it, and it manages to use the actual stage part of it to create a lot of really effective and beautiful camera work. The camera work in this movie was outstanding. There's a lot of great music and great general moments of tension and dialogue, and it's so biting and so poignant, and despite it being a little slow at times, there's so much sweeping emotion to it that I just was floored by the movie from start to finish, and then the beautiful finale just took me out, and it's definitely one of the best movies of the year. Hive was another movie I got to see at the film festival, and it was pretty good. It focuses on a group of widows struggling to cope with the loss of their sons and father due to war and conflict in their country. They're trying to make their own place in this world and move on when they're not really sure that their husbands and sons have passed, but they are pretty sure. With resistance from the other males in the city, seeing these women trying to make their own path and do something with themselves, that resistance really plays a part of getting to see just what these women are up against and seeing this beautiful story unfold, as it's more about one particular woman and her story, but we get to see how she and the other group of women build this company and build something out of themselves, out of the rubble of something that is so tragic. RKRKAY is one of the most bizarre movies I've seen this month or ever. It gives off a lot of Wes Anderson vibes, but it's definitely very different than that in certain ways. I saw this at the film festival as well, and it also was another movie within a movie style thing, but in a very different way. This movie is so bizarre and there's a lot to unpack, and it's best to know a little bit less about what goes on because the surprises it packs are hilarious. The movie's a lot of fun and it's really fast paced, and it cost a little bit of coherence to be this fast paced and hilarious at times, but the way that the movie wraps it all together makes this very tight and very well delivered package. It's hard to complain about that. Lazul focuses on a struggling father who is a fisherman as well, working off of his father's old Lazul. Many things are pressuring this man: adulthood, being a parent, being a partner, being pressured by his in-laws, being pressured by the changing fishing regulations, corrupt individuals in power, fishing markets, making it hard for him to make a living off of something that is already difficult to make a living off of in this world. And we see how this pressure sort of starts to crack him, and he lets it crack him in a way that he tries to build and become a better man and a better father for his child. It's really fascinating and soft-spoken emotional journey that we're seeing this man on, and it's quite beautiful at times, and the only real complaint I have about it is that at the climax of the story, I feel like they could have just built it up to make it actually be something emotional and memorable. Otherwise, it was more predictable than it should have been. However, the movie was still incredibly poignant and it worked really well. Belfast was directed by Kenneth Branagh, and it was a sort of semi-autobiographical look at the Civil War that happened in Ireland several decades ago. It focuses on one family and their domestic strifes amidst the chaos of political and religious turmoil. There's so much heart and excitement to this movie that it really just draws you in and keeps you glued to your seat as you're sort of experiencing this world, and it lets you fill in a lot of the holes and put yourself into it, as well as imagine how other people were dealing with it. And it's really just a fascinating look at time in life and how it can be thematically applied to everything and every day. House of Gucci certainly wasn't bad, but it definitely was a big letdown. The star-studded cast and the director Ridley Scott were not enough to save this movie from becoming incredibly overstuffed, way too long, and just so long-winded that it blows me away how this got made at sometimes. They obviously put a lot of money into it, and it blows my mind that they were able to secure that when it was like, hey, this movie's like way too long and has way too much information. It feels bloated, and the fun that I did have with the movie is ultimately dragged down by that at many points, because a lot of the performances are fun and it's not really a super serious movie, but it has a very intriguing and fascinating source material, and it's a lot of fun to dive into that. It's just so much to unpack, and ultimately it falls a little bit flat compared to with what I'd expect, even though it's still a good movie. Tick Tick Boom was something I hadn't even caught on my radar yet, and it was definitely the best musical of the year, and surprisingly, Andrew Garfield gives an incredible performance as the lead. I've obviously been a fan of Andrew Garfield for a very long time. He's in a movie I really love, Never Let Me Go, and he's obviously my favorite Spider-Man, and he's great at what he does. I just didn't peg him or really see him as this sort of person to bring such fervor and talent to a lead of a musical, and of course, he blew me out of the water and does what he does, which is blow me away. As far as the musical goes, it's so good. There's so much great music, and it's so fun to be a part of and to live the sort of strong emotional parts of this, as well as the funnier parts, as well as the more lighthearted parts, but there's a lot of serious nature to it, and it's just a lot of fun to be a part of this world. In a world where we're being ruled by legacy sequels, all that you can really ask is that it be a worthy follow-up or as good as the original, and Ghostbusters Afterlife is a worthy follow-up, I feel. It stays in line thematically with the original movies, as well as creating something new out of itself. There's a lot of great new characters, as well as the old characters that come back, so a lot of fun to see how they fit into it, and seeing where it could go in the future in a more structured way is a lot of fun to see. King Richard is one of the best movies of the year. Will Smith gives one of his best performances in years, and probably the best, if not very close to the best, of this year. This movie focuses on Richard Williams bringing up Venus and Serena Williams, two tennis titans that are basically household names at this point. It's more about his story, but we do see a lot of the two tennis players. I had hoped for more technical insight on the actual tennis matches and some more intense tension put on that, but the movie as a whole is almost pitch perfect. There's so much heart and emotion in it. It's just so fun to be a part of, as well as it's kind of heart-wrenching at times, and it just delivers it so well. 8-Bit Christmas is a corny mess of a movie, but there's a lot of fun to be had with the antics of it. It certainly borrows a lot, and it's kind of a conglomeration of a lot of better movies, and it doesn't do any of the elements nearly as well as those, but I did enjoy some of living the nostalgia through a character living nostalgia. It was an interesting feeling. Encanto was an animated musical that just recently released for this month, and it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of great family moments, and this sort of story was small and contained, but that didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. There's a lot of fun to be had, as well as a lot of heart. The animation is beautiful, and there's some really great musical numbers. I think the movie could have dived deeper and gone wider with its themes, but that's really only stopping it from becoming great, as opposed to still just being a really good musical animated movie. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is a little bit of a mixed movie for me. I really enjoyed a lot of it, and the cast is great, and it's a lot of fun to watch, but I think that this is sort of supposed to be a way to get more people invested into Resident Evil that aren't already fans. But as somebody who hasn't played the games or watched any of the other older movies, it feels like they're using video game knowledge, people who know about that, to fill in gaps in the story. And there were points where I was like, what is supposed to be going on? Am I supposed to be caring about this, etc.? And it just felt really weird how it was delivered, and I think they could have done better with that. It'd be interesting to see where this goes in the future, although I'm not sure it has a future in this movie world. With that, let's wrap this video up. This has been a long month, but I've seen a lot of great movies, so it's definitely been worth all of the work. As we come to the end of the year, I'm working really hard on getting my top 25 and awards stuff planned for the end of the year. But before that, we have a really big release. I don't know if you've heard of it, Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, I know you've heard of it. We've all heard of it. And I've got a couple really exciting videos coming before that, as well as a video review in the month for that. I'm really excited to share my thoughts on that movie, as well as to see if it lives up to the hype. And until I get to those earlier videos, and until I get to those next videos, follow my Instagram at FWPReviews100 for daily written reviews about the newest movies. And with that, it's FWP Reviews signing off. Thank you guys so much for watching.